Developing leadership skills. Hey there, friend. Let's have a real conversation about something that could completely transform your life and career. Developing leadership skills. Now, before you think this is just for CEOs or people with fancy titles, let me stop you right there. Leadership isn't about your position on an organizational chart. It's about your ability to influence, inspire, and create positive change wherever you are. I've spent years studying what makes great leaders different from everyone else, and I'm excited to share these insights with you today. Whether you're leading a team of hundreds or just trying to lead yourself better, these principles will help you unlock your potential and make a real impact in the world. So grab your favorite drink, get comfortable, and let's dive into what it really takes to become the leader you're capable of being. First, let's clear up the biggest misconception about leadership. Most people think leaders are born, not made. They imagine some people just naturally have this magical charisma that makes others want to follow them. But here's the truth that might surprise you. Leadership is a skill, and like any skill, it can be learned, practiced, and improved. I've met incredible leaders who were painfully shy when they started. I've seen people who could barely speak in front of 5 people go on to inspire thousands. The difference wasn't some inherent talent they discovered. The difference was their commitment to developing their leadership abilities systematically over time. Think about it this way. Nobody expects you to be a great pianist without learning music theory, practicing scales, and putting in hours of deliberate practice. Yet somehow, we expect people to be great leaders without any training or development. It doesn't make sense, does it? The first fundamental principle of leadership development is this: great leaders are great learners. They're constantly seeking new insights, asking for feedback, and looking for ways to improve. They read books, attend seminars, find mentors, and most importantly, they reflect on their experiences to extract lessons they can apply going forward. But here's what separates good learners from great leaders. Great leaders don't just learn for themselves. They're constantly thinking about how they can share what they've learned to help others grow too. They understand that their success is directly connected to the success of the people around them. Let me tell you about something that's absolutely crucial to understand: the difference between management and leadership. Management is about maintaining the status quo, following processes, and getting things done efficiently. Management is important, don't get me wrong, but leadership is about something much more profound. Leadership is about creating a vision of a better future and inspiring others to help make that vision a reality. It's about seeing possibilities that others don't see yet and having the courage to pursue them even when the path isn't clear. It's about believing in people's potential even when they don't believe in themselves. Here's a simple way to think about it. Managers ask, "How can we do this better?" Leaders ask, "What should we be doing instead?" Both questions are valuable, but they represent fundamentally different mindsets. Now, let's talk about one of the most important leadership skills that nobody talks about enough: the ability to listen deeply. Most people think leadership is about talking, about being the person with all the answers, about commanding attention when you walk into a room. But the most effective leaders I know are actually incredible listeners. Deep listening means more than just waiting for your turn to talk. It means truly trying to understand what others are thinking and feeling. It means asking thoughtful questions that help people clarify their own thinking. It means creating space for others to share their ideas, concerns, and dreams. When you listen deeply to people, something magical happens. They feel heard, valued, and understood. And when people feel that way, they're much more likely to trust you, follow you, and give their best effort to shared goals. I remember working with a leader who transformed his entire organization simply by implementing what he called listening tours. Instead of sending out surveys or relying on reports from his management team, he spent time one-on-one with employees at every level, asking questions like, "What's working well here? What's frustrating you? If you were in charge, what would you change first?" The insights he gained were incredible, but more importantly, people felt heard in a way they never had before. Employee engagement scores went through the roof, not because he implemented every suggestion, but because people felt like their voices mattered. Let's dive into another critical aspect of leadership: emotional intelligence. This is your ability to understand and manage your own emotions while also being aware of and responsive to the emotions of others. It might be the most important leadership skill you can develop. Think about the leaders who have had the biggest positive impact on your life. I bet they weren't just smart or skilled. I bet they were also emotionally intelligent. They could sense when you were struggling, even when you didn't say anything. They knew how to motivate you when you were discouraged. They could remain calm under pressure and help others do the same. Emotional intelligence starts with self-awareness. You need to understand your own emotional patterns. What situations trigger stress or anger for you? How do you typically react when you're frustrated or disappointed? What are your emotional strengths and blind spots? Once you understand your own emotions better, you can start managing them more effectively. This doesn't mean suppressing your emotions or pretending you don't feel them. It means choosing how to respond rather than just reacting automatically. For example, let's say someone on your team makes a mistake that creates extra work for everyone else. Your first impulse might be anger or frustration. An emotionally intelligent leader acknowledges those feelings but chooses to respond in a way that's constructive rather than destructive. They might think, "I'm frustrated right now, but getting angry won't fix the problem or prevent it from happening again. Let me focus on understanding what went wrong and how we can improve our processes." The second part of emotional intelligence is understanding others. This means paying attention to verbal and nonverbal cues, asking questions to understand different perspectives, and recognizing that everyone is dealing with challenges you might not know about. When you combine self-awareness with empathy for others, you become the kind of leader people want to follow. You become someone who makes others feel safe, supported, and inspired to do their best work. Now, let's talk about something that separates good leaders from great ones: the ability to communicate a compelling vision. A vision isn't just a goal or a plan. It's a picture of a better future that people can see, feel, and get excited about. Great leaders are essentially storytellers. They help people understand not just what needs to be done, but why it matters. They connect daily tasks to bigger purposes. They help people see how their individual contributions fit into something larger and more meaningful. But here's the key: a compelling vision isn't just about the destination, it's also about the journey. People want to know that the path forward will be challenging but achievable. that they'll grow and develop along the way, and that they'll be supported when things get difficult. Think about some of the most inspiring leaders in history. They didn't just tell people what they wanted to accomplish. They painted vivid pictures of what the world would look like when they succeeded. They helped people imagine not just the end result, but how it would feel to be part of creating something important. And here's something crucial. A compelling vision has to be authentic. It has to come from your genuine beliefs about what's possible and what's important. People can sense when you're just saying what you think they want to hear, versus when you're sharing something you truly believe in. Let me tell you about the importance of building trust as a leader. Trust is the foundation of everything else. Without trust, your vision sounds like empty words. Without trust, your attempts to motivate people feel manipulative. Without trust, your feedback sounds like criticism instead of guidance. Trust is built through consistency over time. It's about doing what you say you're going to do, even when it's inconvenient. It's about admitting when you don't know something instead of pretending to have all the answers. It's about taking responsibility when things go wrong instead of looking for someone else to blame. One of the fastest ways to build trust is to be vulnerable appropriately. This means sharing your own challenges, mistakes, and learning experiences. It means asking for help when you need it. It means acknowledging when others have ideas or skills that are better than yours. I know this might sound counterintuitive. We often think leaders need to project strength and certainty all the time. But vulnerability, when done thoughtfully, is actually a sign of strength. It shows that you're secure enough in yourself to be honest about your limitations. When you're appropriately vulnerable, you give others permission to be human too. You create an environment where people feel safe to take risks, make mistakes, and learn from them. And that's exactly the kind of environment where innovation and growth happen. Now, let's dive into something that's absolutely critical for developing leadership skills: the ability to develop other leaders. The most effective leaders don't just accomplish things themselves. They multiply their impact by developing the leadership capabilities of the people around them. This means looking for leadership potential in everyone you work with, not just the people who already have leadership titles. It means providing opportunities for people to take on new challenges and responsibilities. It means giving feedback that helps people grow, not just feedback that corrects mistakes. Developing other leaders also means getting comfortable with the fact that the people you develop might eventually surpass you in some areas. Insecure leaders try to keep people dependent on them. Secure leaders take pride in seeing others succeed and grow beyond what they initially thought possible. I love what John Maxwell said. A leader's success is measured not by what they accomplish personally, but by what they accomplish through other people. When you adopt this mindset, everything changes. Instead of hoarding opportunities, you look for ways to create them for others. Instead of being threatened by other people's success, you celebrate it because you know you played a role in making it possible. Let's talk about decision-making, because this is where a lot of potential leaders get stuck. They think they need to have perfect information before making any decision. Or they're so afraid of making the wrong choice that they end up making no choice at all. Effective leaders understand that decision-making is a skill that gets better with practice. They know that waiting for perfect information usually means missing opportunities. They've learned to make decisions with the best information available at the time, while remaining flexible enough to adjust course when they learn new things. But here's what's really important. Great leaders involve others in their decision-making process when appropriate. They don't make every decision in isolation. They seek input from people who have different perspectives and expertise. They understand that the quality of their decisions improves when they tap into the collective wisdom of their team. This doesn't mean every decision is made by committee. Sometimes leaders need to make quick decisions with limited input. But whenever possible, involving others in the decision-making process has multiple benefits. It usually leads to better decisions. It helps people understand the reasoning behind decisions, and it develops the decision-making skills of others. Now, let me share something that's often overlooked but incredibly important. The role of personal values in leadership. Your values are your fundamental beliefs about what's right and wrong, what's important and what's not. They're your moral compass, and they should guide every leadership decision you make. Here's the thing about values. Everyone has them, but not everyone has taken the time to identify and articulate them clearly. If you can't clearly state what you stand for, how can you expect others to follow you? If you're not consistent in applying your values, how can people trust that you'll stick to your principles when things get difficult? Great leaders are crystal clear about their values, and they're consistent in applying them even when it's costly or uncomfortable. This doesn't mean they're rigid or inflexible. It means they have a strong foundation that guides their decisions and actions. When your values are clear and consistent, something interesting happens. You attract people who share similar values, and you create a culture where those values become the norm. People know what to expect from you, and they know what you expect from them. Let's dive into something that's crucial for modern leaders: the ability to lead change. The pace of change in our world is accelerating, and the leaders who thrive are the ones who can help their organizations adapt and evolve. Leading change starts with understanding that people's natural reaction to change is often resistance, even when the change is clearly beneficial. This isn't because people are stubborn or difficult. It's because change represents uncertainty, and uncertainty can be scary. Effective change leaders understand this psychology. They don't just announce changes and expect people to embrace them immediately. They take time to explain why change is necessary. They paint a picture of what the future will look like after the change. They acknowledge people's concerns and address them thoughtfully. They also understand that change is a process, not an event. People need time to understand, accept, and adapt to new ways of doing things. Great change leaders provide support and patience during this transition while maintaining momentum toward the new vision. One of the most important things I've learned about leading change is that you have to model the change you want to see. If you're asking people to be more collaborative, you need to demonstrate collaboration yourself. If you're asking people to be more innovative, you need to show that you're open to new ideas and willing to take calculated risks. Let me talk about something that every leader faces: how to handle conflict and difficult conversations. Many people avoid leadership roles because they don't want to deal with conflict. But here's the reality. Conflict is inevitable whenever you have human beings working together toward shared goals. The question isn't whether you'll face conflict as a leader. The question is whether you'll handle it constructively or let it fester and damage relationships and results. Great leaders understand that conflict, when handled well, can actually be healthy and productive. It can lead to better solutions, clearer communication, and stronger relationships. The key is addressing conflict early, directly, and respectfully. This means having the courage to have difficult conversations when they're needed. It means focusing on specific behaviors and their impact rather than making personal attacks. It means listening to understand different perspectives, not just to defend your own position. It also means helping others learn to handle conflict constructively. When you model good conflict resolution skills, you teach others how to do the same. Over time, this creates a culture where people feel safe to disagree respectfully and work through differences productively. Now, let's talk about something that's absolutely essential for leadership development: the importance of continuous learning and adaptation. The world is changing so rapidly that the skills and knowledge that got you to where you are today might not be sufficient to get you where you want to go tomorrow. Great leaders are lifelong learners. They read widely, not just in their own field, but in related areas that might give them new insights. They seek out mentors and advisors who can challenge their thinking. They attend conferences, workshops, and seminars to stay current with new developments. But here's what sets great leaders apart. They don't just consume information. They actively experiment with new approaches and ideas. They treat their leadership as a laboratory where they can test new concepts and learn from the results. They're also humble enough to learn from failure. When something doesn't work out as planned, they don't waste time on blame or regret. They ask, "What can we learn from this? How can we do better next time? What assumptions do we need to question?" This continuous learning mindset is contagious. When people see their leader constantly growing and evolving, they're inspired to do the same. It creates a culture of growth and improvement that benefits everyone. Let me share something that's often misunderstood about leadership: the relationship between confidence and humility. Some people think leaders need to be supremely confident all the time, projecting an image of having everything figured out. Others think leaders need to be humble to the point of self-deprecation. The truth is that the most effective leaders combine confidence with humility in a way that's both inspiring and approachable. They're confident in their ability to learn, adapt, and find solutions, even when they don't know the answers right now. But they're humble enough to acknowledge what they don't know and to seek help from others. This combination is powerful because it creates psychological safety for others. People feel comfortable bringing problems to a confident leader because they believe solutions can be found. But they also feel comfortable being honest about challenges and mistakes because the leader's humility makes them approachable. Think about the leaders who have had the most positive impact on your life. I bet they had this quality. They made you believe that challenges could be overcome, while also making you feel safe to be honest about your struggles and uncertainties. Now, let's dive into something that's crucial in our interconnected world: the ability to influence without authority. You might not have a formal leadership title, or you might need to work with people who don't report to you. In these situations, your ability to influence becomes critical. Influence without authority starts with building relationships based on trust and mutual respect. People are more likely to be influenced by someone they like, trust, and respect than by someone who has formal power over them. It also involves understanding what motivates different people. Some people are motivated by recognition, others by autonomy, others by the opportunity to learn and grow. When you understand what matters to different people, you can frame your requests and ideas in ways that align with their interests. Another key aspect of influence is reciprocity. When you help others achieve their goals, they're more likely to help you achieve yours. This doesn't mean keeping a scorecard of favors. It means genuinely looking for ways to add value to others' work and lives. Great influencers are also skilled at presenting ideas in compelling ways. They don't just say what they want. They explain why it matters, how it benefits others, and what the consequences might be of not acting. They tell stories that help people understand and remember key points. Let's talk about something that's becoming increasingly important: leading diverse and inclusive teams. The most successful organizations today bring together people with different backgrounds, perspectives, and experiences. But managing this diversity effectively requires specific leadership skills. Inclusive leadership starts with recognizing and addressing your own unconscious biases. We all have them. Mental shortcuts and assumptions that influence how we perceive and interact with others. The first step is becoming aware of these biases so you can make more conscious choices about how you respond to people. It also means creating an environment where everyone feels valued and heard, regardless of their background or position. This might mean adjusting your communication style for different people, making sure meetings include voices from different perspectives, and being intentional about opportunities for development and advancement. Inclusive leaders also understand that diversity of thought leads to better solutions. They actively seek out different viewpoints when making decisions. They create processes that give everyone a chance to contribute ideas, not just the people who are most comfortable speaking up in groups. Here's something that many aspiring leaders struggle with: the balance between being decisive and being collaborative. They worry that if they involve others too much in decisions, they'll be seen as weak or indecisive. But if they make too many decisions unilaterally, they'll be seen as autocratic. The key is knowing when to use each approach. Some decisions require quick action with limited input. Others benefit from extensive collaboration and discussion. Great leaders develop the judgment to know which approach is most appropriate for each situation. They also communicate clearly about their decision-making process. If they're making a decision quickly with limited input, they explain why. If they're involving others extensively, they're clear about roles: who's providing input, who's making the decision, and who's responsible for implementation. This transparency helps people understand and accept decisions even when they might have preferred a different approach. It also helps develop the decision-making skills of others by showing them how to think through these choices. Now, let me talk about something that's absolutely critical: taking care of yourself as a leader. Leadership can be demanding, stressful, and emotionally draining. If you don't take care of your own physical, mental, and emotional well-being, you won't be able to take care of others effectively. This means paying attention to basics like sleep, exercise, and nutrition. It means having hobbies and relationships outside of work that bring you joy and help you recharge. It means knowing when to ask for help and when to take breaks. Self-care also includes managing your own emotional reactions and stress levels. When leaders are stressed, anxious, or overwhelmed, it affects everyone around them. People look to leaders for emotional cues about how to interpret and respond to situations. Great leaders develop strategies for staying centered and resilient, even when facing significant challenges. They might practice meditation, keep a journal, work with a coach or therapist, or have trusted advisors they can talk through difficult situations with. They also model healthy boundaries for others. If you're constantly working late and weekends, you're sending a message that this is what's expected. If you take time off and encourage others to do the same, you're promoting a more sustainable approach to work. Let's dive into something that's often overlooked but incredibly important: the role of systems thinking in leadership. Most people focus on events and immediate problems, but great leaders think in terms of systems and patterns. Systems thinking means understanding that everything is connected. A problem in one area might be caused by issues in a completely different area. A solution that works in the short term might create bigger problems down the road if it doesn't address underlying causes. For example, if your team is consistently missing deadlines, the immediate response might be to work longer hours or hire more people. But a systems thinker would ask deeper questions. Are the deadlines realistic? Do people have the skills and resources they need? Are there communication or process problems that are creating inefficiencies? Systems thinking also involves understanding unintended consequences. Every action creates reactions, and some of those reactions might not be immediately obvious. Great leaders try to anticipate these consequences and plan accordingly. This kind of thinking takes practice, but it's incredibly valuable. It helps you solve problems at their root rather than just treating symptoms. It helps you make decisions that create long-term value rather than just short-term fixes. Now, let me share something about leading in crisis situations. Every leader will face unexpected challenges, whether it's an economic downturn, a natural disaster, a pandemic, or some other crisis. How you respond in these moments often defines your leadership legacy. Crisis leadership requires several specific skills. First, you need to stay calm under pressure. When everyone else is panicking, people look to leaders for stability and reassurance. This doesn't mean pretending everything is fine when it's not. It means acknowledging the reality of the situation while projecting confidence that it can be managed. Second, you need to communicate frequently and transparently. During uncertain times, people's imaginations often create scenarios that are worse than reality. Regular, honest communication helps manage anxiety and keeps people focused on what they can control. Third, you need to make decisions quickly with incomplete information. In a crisis, waiting for perfect information usually isn't an option. You have to do the best you can with what you know, while remaining flexible enough to adjust as you learn more. Crisis leadership also involves taking care of people's emotional needs, not just their practical needs. People need to feel heard, supported, and valued, especially during difficult times. A leader who only focuses on tasks and logistics without attending to the human element will struggle to maintain morale and engagement. Let's talk about something that's becoming increasingly important in our connected world: leading remote and virtual teams. This requires some specific skills that weren't as important when everyone worked in the same physical space. Virtual leadership starts with communication. When you can't rely on casual hallway conversations or quick check-ins at someone's desk, you need to be much more intentional about staying connected with your team members. This might mean regular one-on-one video calls, structured team meetings, or using collaboration tools effectively. It also requires being results-focused rather than activity-focused. When you can't see people working, you need to trust that they're being productive and judge them based on outcomes rather than hours worked or busyness. Virtual leaders also need to be proactive about building relationships and team culture. The informal social interactions that happen naturally in physical offices need to be created intentionally in virtual environments. This might mean starting meetings with personal check-ins, organizing virtual social events, or creating online spaces for casual conversation. Here's something that many leaders struggle with: giving effective feedback. Feedback is how people learn and improve, but most people either avoid giving feedback altogether or deliver it in ways that make people defensive rather than receptive to change. Effective feedback is specific, timely, and focused on behavior rather than personality. Instead of saying "you're disorganized," you might say, "I noticed that the project timeline you sent was missing several key milestones. Can we talk about how to make sure all the important dates are included?" Great feedback also includes recognition of what's working well, not just what needs to be fixed. People need to know when they're doing things right so they can continue those behaviors. A good rule of thumb is to provide at least as much positive feedback as corrective feedback. The most effective leaders also create cultures where feedback flows in all directions. They regularly ask for feedback on their own performance and create safe ways for people to share concerns or suggestions. This two-way feedback creates continuous learning and improvement for everyone. Now, let me talk about something that's absolutely crucial: leading with authenticity. Authenticity doesn't mean sharing every thought or emotion you have. It means being genuine about who you are, what you believe, and what you're trying to achieve. Authentic leaders don't try to be someone they're not. They understand their own strengths and limitations, and they're honest about both. They don't pretend to know things they don't know or claim credit for things they didn't do. But authenticity also means being the best version of yourself. You might naturally be introverted, but that doesn't mean you can't develop your public speaking skills. You might not be naturally organized, but that doesn't mean you can't learn systems that help you be more effective. Authentic leadership also involves aligning your actions with your values, even when it's difficult or costly. People watch what leaders do much more closely than they listen to what leaders say. When your actions consistently match your stated values, you build trust and credibility. Let's dive into something that's often misunderstood: the relationship between leadership and power. Some people are uncomfortable with the idea of having power over others. Others seek power for its own sake. Neither approach is healthy or effective. Great leaders understand that power is a tool that should be used in service of others and in pursuit of important goals. They don't seek power for personal gain or ego gratification. They seek it so they can create positive change and help others succeed. They also understand that real leadership power comes from influence and trust, not from formal authority. You can have an impressive title and still not be a real leader if people don't willingly follow you. Conversely, you can have enormous leadership impact without any formal authority if people trust and respect you. Effective leaders also share power rather than hoarding it. They delegate meaningful responsibilities, involve others in important decisions, and create opportunities for others to lead. They understand that empowering others multiplies their own impact rather than diminishing it. Here's something that every leader needs to understand: the importance of building and maintaining your personal brand. Your personal brand is the reputation and perception that others have of you based on your actions, communications, and results over time. Building a strong leadership brand starts with being clear about what you want to be known for. What are your core strengths? What unique value do you bring? What do you want people to think of when they hear your name? Once you're clear on this, you need to consistently demonstrate these qualities in everything you do. Your personal brand is built through thousands of small interactions and decisions over time. Every email you send, every meeting you lead, every way you handle a crisis contributes to your brand. A strong personal brand also requires being visible and sharing your expertise appropriately. This might mean speaking at conferences, writing articles, participating in industry discussions, or mentoring others. The key is finding authentic ways to share your knowledge and perspectives that add value to others. Now, let's talk about something that's critical for long-term success: building strategic thinking skills. Strategic thinking is the ability to see the big picture, understand complex relationships, and make decisions that create long-term value rather than just solving immediate problems. Strategic leaders are constantly asking questions like, where is our industry heading? What changes in technology, demographics, or regulations might affect us? What opportunities are we not seeing? What are our competitors doing that we should be aware of? They also think about resource allocation and priorities. Every organization has limited time, money, and attention. Strategic leaders are skilled at identifying the activities and initiatives that will have the biggest positive impact and focusing resources accordingly. Strategic thinking also involves scenario planning, imagining different possible futures and preparing for each one. Instead of just planning for the most likely outcome, strategic leaders consider what they would do if things turned out much better or much worse than expected. Let me share something about leading innovation and creativity. In today's rapidly changing world, the ability to innovate and adapt is crucial for long-term success. But innovation doesn't just happen by accident. It requires intentional leadership. Innovation leaders create environments where new ideas are welcomed and explored, even if they challenge the status quo. They understand that most new ideas won't work out, but that the few that do can create enormous value. This means being comfortable with experimentation and failure. Innovation leaders encourage people to try new approaches, even when success isn't guaranteed. They celebrate intelligent failures, attempts that were well-reasoned even if they didn't work out. They also understand that innovation often comes from combining existing ideas in new ways or applying solutions from one field to problems in another field. They encourage diverse thinking and cross-functional collaboration. Innovation leaders also know when to stop experimenting and scale successful innovations. They understand the difference between the skills needed to create something new and the skills needed to implement it broadly. Here's something that's becoming increasingly important: leading across cultures and generations. Today's leaders often work with people from different countries, cultures, and age groups. Each brings different values, communication styles, and expectations. Effective cross-cultural leadership starts with cultural intelligence, the ability to understand and adapt to different cultural contexts. This means learning about different communication styles, decision-making approaches, and value systems. It also means avoiding assumptions about what motivates different people or how they prefer to work. Instead of assuming everyone wants the same things you want, effective leaders ask people about their preferences and adapt their approach accordingly. Generational leadership involves understanding that people who grew up in different decades may have different attitudes toward work, technology, and authority. Rather than judging these differences, effective leaders find ways to leverage the strengths that different generations bring. Now, let me talk about something that's absolutely critical: measuring and tracking your leadership development. You can't improve what you don't measure, and leadership skills are no exception. This might involve regular feedback from colleagues, supervisors, and team members. Many organizations use 360-degree feedback tools that gather input from people at all levels about your leadership effectiveness. You can also track specific metrics related to your leadership impact. Are the people who work with you engaged and productive? Do they stay with the organization or leave for other opportunities? Are they developing new skills and taking on greater responsibilities? Personal reflection is also important. Regularly ask yourself questions like, what leadership challenges did I handle well recently? Where did I struggle? What patterns do I notice in my leadership? What skills do I need to develop further? Consider keeping a leadership journal where you record significant experiences, insights, and lessons learned. Over time, this becomes a valuable resource for understanding your growth and identifying areas for continued development. Let me share something about the importance of building a personal advisory network. No leader succeeds in isolation. The most effective leaders surround themselves with people who can provide guidance, support, and different perspectives. This network might include formal mentors, but it should also include peers who are facing similar challenges, experts in areas where you want to develop, and even people who are earlier in their careers but have fresh perspectives to offer. Building this network requires being intentional about relationships. You need to invest time in getting to know people, understanding their expertise and perspectives, and finding ways to add value to their lives as well. The best advisory relationships are reciprocal. Even when someone is clearly your mentor, look for ways to contribute to their success too. This might be sharing insights from your different perspective, making introductions to people in your network, or simply being a thoughtful sounding board for their ideas. Finally, let me talk about something that ties everything together: developing your own leadership philosophy. This is your personal framework for how you approach leadership decisions and challenges. Your leadership philosophy might include beliefs about how people should be treated, what motivates high performance, how decisions should be made, what role leaders should play in developing others, and what success looks like. Having a clear leadership philosophy doesn't mean being rigid or inflexible. It means having a foundation of principles that guide your decisions, especially when facing difficult or ambiguous situations. Your leadership philosophy will evolve as you gain experience and learn new things. The important thing is being intentional about developing it rather than just reacting to situations as they arise. So here's what I want you to take away from our conversation today. Leadership isn't about having a fancy title or being in charge of people. It's about having the skills and mindset to create positive change, inspire others, and help everyone achieve more together than they could individually. These skills can be developed by anyone who's willing to commit to continuous learning and growth. You don't need to be the smartest person in the room or have all the answers. You need to be someone who cares about others, who's willing to do the hard work of self-improvement, and who's committed to serving something larger than yourself. Start where you are, with whatever influence you have right now. Look for opportunities to practice these skills in your current role, whether that's leading a project, mentoring a colleague, or simply being someone others can count on. Remember, every expert was once a beginner. Every great leader started somewhere. The question isn't whether you have what it takes to be a leader right now. The question is whether you're willing to commit to developing these skills over time. I believe you have more leadership potential than you realize. The world needs more people who are committed to leading with integrity, compassion, and a genuine desire to make things better for everyone. So start today. Pick one leadership skill we've discussed and focus on developing it. See what happens. I think you'll be amazed at the difference it makes, not just for you, but for everyone around you. The world is waiting for the unique contribution that only you can make. Now go out there and make it happen.